Audience, and this is such a beautiful place to be showing it. I was actually crying a lot in the film, and I've seen this film many times. There was one of the community screeners. They're showing it in St. John's, Newfoundland tonight, and Thomas Clark is the community screener organizer there, and he said, I wrote him to ask him to check the DVD because we had problems with a couple of DVDs, and so have you watched the DVD? He said, I've watched it 7 times, and I keep telling myself, don't cry this time. Occupy Newfoundland was the longest of them all. They lasted all through the Newfoundland winter, through to May from October. So. Should we start with some questions?
Yeah, I think that would be great. Yeah. You can ask him anything.
Could I just say one thing briefly first?
Yeah.
Your film really caught the love.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. You know, so beautiful Velcrow. You know, it wasn't one moment that my heart was not completely breaking open. It was just visually so arresting. That's the good way to be arrested.
So I just wanted to thank you for presenting this documentary. I just wanted to thank you for presenting this documentary, for creating it. I was overseas during that time period when these Occupy movements were going on. I was without internet access during most of that. So when I came back, I heard there was these Occupy things, and I was in a small town, and I was asking, what was going on with this, and for the last few years, just kind of piecing together what was happening. But this was the most complete rendition of documentary of that I've seen. And my question is just, what's going on with these movements? It seems like last year they kind of lost steam is the they didn't get going again.
Sure, that's a really good question. What's happening with the movement? Well, I think movements there's like this beam of light that shines through movements at different times, and there's different moments where they're really in their full flower, and the energy had shifted. The Occupy movement was really intensified around that occupation process, but the movement itself is very diverse and is doing many, many things. In New York City, there's Occupy Sandy, which to me is remarkable. It's I consider it kind of Occupy 3.0. We got hit by this climate change-induced hurricane a little while ago, and the Occupy movement immediately was there. Occupy Sandy was born almost immediately with the spirit of mutual aid, and they're still there, working hard. It's neighbors helping neighbors, right in the most devastated areas, going to all the places that are slipping through the cracks, and just showing this incredible creativity and resourcefulness and this spirit of compassion. Right? So Occupy Sandy is very strong right now. There's many initiatives that aren't so much activist or action-oriented you might not hear about, like there's Strike Debt, which is an Occupy initiative where they're going around and they're buying up. There's these debt auctions where people will go and they'll buy up debt, and then they get it really cheap, and then if they manage to recapture it, they make a lot of money. It's a bit risky, but there's these debt auctions. So Occupy raises money to buy this debt. You get $1 million of debt for $10,000. So they buy $100,000 worth of debt, and then they forgive it, and they're focusing on medical debt. Kind of all this creativity. Yeah. And then in Canada, we have a movement called Idle No More. There's after you shot that round dance you saw overhead. Idle No More movement just started on December 21st, 2012, and is really going strong. And they're an indigenous rights revolution spreading all over the world, actually, and they're very focused on environmental issues, and it's the young Native people just coming up and rising up, and they have beautiful techniques. They do flash mob round dances as one of their techniques. They did them simultaneously in shopping malls all across North America. They'll take over a shopping mall with maybe 1,000 people, maybe 100 hand drums, and just start doing these giant round dances that everyone can join in on. They're very creative in their movement building. But it's very powerful. That's a movement that's happening right now. In Spain, the M15 movement, the Indignados, has matured and is really in the neighborhoods at the community level. The general assemblies are actually still very much used in Spain. And there's entire towns in Spain that have are going, like in the US actually, but more so there, that are going bankrupt, and they're creating alternative ways of supporting each other. The same thing's happening in Greece, where workers are starting to run their own factories, for example, where the bosses just shut them down. The workers say, we want to keep our jobs, and they just start doing it.
Wow.
So we're seeing this happening. We're seeing initiatives happening all over the place, and it doesn't get in the news because the news doesn't connect the dots, and the news is kind of blind to movements and what they do. They can only see it when it's really at its flashiest, which is why we have to do round dances and shopping. But, you know, and then I don't know if you heard about Bulgaria. Have you heard about what's going on in Bulgaria? They had hundreds of thousands in the streets for several months on end around, it's an economic austerity issue. And Bulgaria has got like 20 Occupy Love screenings happening tonight in like 10 different cities. Wow. They translated it into Bulgarian themselves. And somebody just posted on my Facebook wall tonight that they couldn't get into one because it was sold out. So, you know, they're very excited. They didn't hear much about Occupy Wall Street either. So the film is really providing that. The movements continue. But, you know, movements, you know, this is a long journey we're in, and we're not like a corporation that thinks in terms of quarterly profits. You know, we have to think long term. And also the climate justice movement has never been stronger. You know, 50,000 people at the White House. The work that 350.org is doing is just so inspiring. So, you know, the movements really are not going anywhere. And more than anything, what we're seeing is a cultural shift, a generational cultural shift. And that's really the way to understand it, much like we had in the 60s, but with all the wisdom that we've accumulated between then and now, you know, imbued in it. I really have a lot of hope for the young generation that's coming up. That's a long answer to it. Yeah.
Bring me.
Can you? I have a bunch of questions, but I'm going to try to narrow it down and fire a few at you. First of all, where can I get like 50 copies of that book?
So,
And how soon?
did you sign up on the mailing list?
Not yet.
You can actually get some tonight. I
Okay.
have a bag of them. They're not actually available until May 3rd, technically on our website. But after that, you can